Good morning. This is Haley Solomon with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Director of Housing Policy, Stephanie Watkins-Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you are having a great day so far. We're going to go ahead and kick it off with organizational updates. Our third session of our Learning Collaborative is on February 16th. We'll include the registration link in the call notes. For those curious about what this Learning Collaborative will be about, you might remember that through a 2-year grant from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention and the North Carolina Division of Public Health, the Housing Coalition has been engaging different stakeholders across the state in order to address housing needs for people who are impacted by the justice system and those who are at risk of overdose from opioids. So we're highlighting different partnerships, collaborations, and interventions to showcase the work that is happening in North Carolina to improve access to housing, reduce barriers, and demonstrate various evidence-based practices that are improving the lives of North Carolinians impacted by the justice system and at risk of overdose. So these learning collaboratives will be a set of 6. This is 3 of 6. We'll be convening different practitioners, advocates, and community members in order to provide education, build cross-sector relationships, and coalesce around shared policy goals. If you missed sessions 1 and 2, don't worry. We'll have the link to those recordings in the call notes as well, and the link to register for session 3, again, February 16th, will be in the call notes. The second thing, just remember to mark your calendars. Registration will be opening soon for our Bringing It Home conference, Ending Homelessness in North Carolina, which will take place on June 4th and 5th. At the McHenry Center in Raleigh. And for the first time since 2019, we will be back in person to learn, network, and collaborate with industry experts from across North Carolina and beyond. So really excited to have this conference again and to see everyone. This is the conference that we host alongside the North Carolina Coalition and Homelessness, as well as the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services ESG office. Moving on to federal updates, we have a federal advocacy opportunity for you all. There's a bipartisan piece of legislation titled Reforming Disaster Recovery Act, which is Senate Bill 1668 or House Resolution 5940. This piece of legislation proposes to permanently authorize HUD's Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program, or affectionately known as CDBG-DR. This program provides flexible grants to help presidentially declared disaster areas rebuild affordable housing and other infrastructure, and will help make critical reforms to ensure that this process is more efficient and equitable when it comes to disaster recovery. By permanently authorizing CDBG-DR, this cuts down significantly on a lot of time and some of the burdens of the administrative process that comes with administering federal funds. So we're partnering with the National Low-Income Housing Coalition to collect different sign-ons from organizations and local groups across North Carolina so that we can send a letter to Patrick McHenry, who is the chairman and sits on the House Financial Services Committee that will be considering this bill this year. So when there's an opening on this, we want to be ready to apply some additional pressure, and we want to be ready for the House to act. If you're interested and your organization is interested or you're interested in signing on, you can contact Noah Patton at npatton@nlihc.org, or just reach out to us and we will connect you with our NLHSC partners regarding the letter and any questions about this bill and additional details. Other federal updates, the tax package passed the House last week, and now it's on to the Senate. So it's important that you reach out to your senators and remind them of how important passing this tax package is for affordable housing, particularly because of the 2 major provisions that it includes from the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. Just from these 2 provisions alone, they could finance the production or preservation of over 200,000 additional affordable homes, according to Novogradac. We also want you to continue engaging with Congress around fiscal year 24 housing funding. Some of the numbers have been leaked around other departments' allocations, which makes us a little nervous about the remaining amount of funds available for the Department of Housing and Urban Development and their housing and homelessness program. So continue to reach out to Congress and remind them that it's important that there is an increase in funding for HUD in order to simply maintain the services and the people that are dependent on these programs in the communities across the country as well as across our state. Moving to state updates. Last Friday, February 2nd, was the public comment deadline for the proposed North Carolina Rate Bureau insurance hike. At an event last week, Commissioner Mike Causey said that he opposes the rate hike. Thousands of public comments and letters of opposition have been filed in the last few weeks, and we found that several local governments also adopted resolutions formally opposing the proposed increases. For example, Pender County and several towns on the coast did so as well. If an agreement can't be reached between the Department of Insurance and the North Carolina Rate Bureau with the requested rates, they will either be denied or negotiated. And if a settlement cannot be reached in 50 days, then Commissioner Causey will have to call for a public hearing. Several of you have filled out our form asking for stories, and I just want to say thank you so much for sharing those. Please continue to do so because we want to continue to lift up those stories and how these proposed rate hikes will be really detrimental to people across our state. In the state legislature, there was a House Select Committee meeting on homeowners associations, specifically to talk about HB 542, which was introduced last fall and remains in conference committee. This bill in particular would limit an HOA's ability to foreclose on properties for small debts owed. And this is actually a much larger problem across both the country, but also in our state. The House Select Committee on Homeowners Associations is supposed to meet again. They were going to meet tomorrow, but that meeting has been canceled. So we're going to wait and see when they meet again because then they have to finalize their recommendations to the General Assembly. But they are no longer accepting public comment. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. Other relevant meetings this morning, right now, actually, the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Health and Human Services is meeting. The Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Medicaid is meeting today at 1 p.m. And again, the House Select Committee on Homeowners Associations meeting, that was supposed to be tomorrow, but that has been canceled. In terms of local community updates, last week, the Raleigh City Council heard from over 60 different residents that were supporting and opposing the proposed transit overlay district along the New Bern Avenue Bus Rapid Transit Corridor. The city wants to rezone about 700 acres in order to allow for more density and walkability along this corridor. Some of the opponents of this overlay fear that it will lead to increased gentrification and displacement for lowest income families most in need of options, while some supporters say that it will increase the types and price points of housing options. Council has sent planning staff back to parse the land into smaller tracts that they will consider for rezoning in March. The Lumbee Tribe recently announced a number of housing successes from 2023. Throughout the year, the tribe served over 48 families through their own down payment assistance program to purchase their first home. They've rehabbed 217 homes for homeowners, built 13 rental homes, and managed 474 mortgages for tribal citizens. They served 27 families with transitional housing and passed a historic policy change that will open up land for more home building. So congratulations to the families and members of the Lumbee Tribe. North Carolina State Employees Credit Union submitted $2 million recently to the Good Shepherd Center in Wilmington. It's doing great work. The funds will be used to construct a 32-unit permanent supportive housing facility to help veterans, seniors, and people with disabilities experiencing homelessness. Really great investment in an organization that's really striving to be a model for housing first in that area. In reports and resources, we have a lot of resources that continue to kind of pick up speed and attention, both from last week, but I want to continue to roll those over to this week, and one in particular just highlighting from the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard is, again, the one looking at how to estimate the national housing shortfall and the different methodologies to do so. There are several events happening, both in person and online. HUD is having an asset disposition guidance webinar on February 8th at 2 p.m., so this is online. the Bipartisan Policy Center and the Joe Wingert Center for Housing on February 15th at 11 a.m. is having a webinar on housing supply, labor markets, and economic growth. And the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard on February 16th at 12:15 is having a webinar on expanding homeownership with manufactured housing. NC1, the North Carolina Women's Affordable Housing Network, is having a Vita V Art Gallery and Wine Bar event in person at Raleigh Happy Hour on February 22nd from 4 to 6 p.m. And again, don't forget about our Learning Collaborative happening on February 16th. I believe it begins at 10 a.m. In the news, housing continues to be a really hot topic. The Wall Street Journal has a piece titled "The Economy is Starting to Look Normal and Housing Isn't." Really interesting perspective, an important one. While some people kind of relax as they see some economic indicators coming down, a good reminder that housing is not coming down. There's another piece about a project, a pilot out of Austin, Texas. Austin gave families $1,000 a month for a year, and they found that most of the money was spent on housing. And another piece out of the New York Times, more renters than ever before are burdened by the rent they pay. And lastly, a piece where you'll hear some reflections from our Executive Director, Samuel Gunter from UNC, an interview, "Where do candidates for governor stand on North Carolina's housing needs?" So that interview with Samuel and WUNC is available to listen and also look at the transcript. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. As always, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything, and we'll talk to you next week.